Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Aston Williams coming to you again with another dope episode of the Melanated Travelers Podcast. And y'all already know what we try to do, man. We try to inspire the African diaspora and also people that love to listen to the podcast to travel the world. So we have amazing guests, we have amazing travel content creators, business owners, just sharing their insight on so many different avenues and so many ways to navigate the world, whether that be luxury, whether that be nomadic, rather that be just a wanderer that just want to go somewhere and pick something on the map and just travel. This is what this platform is about. So I have an amazing guest in the building. I have Cam Clemens, aka the Cultured Cam. How you doing today, Queen?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited about our interview today.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Let's get it popping. And we talked outside the studio, so I gotta say it right now. I didn't even know we was connected in that type of way, but she's a sororite as well. So shout out to all my brothers of Phi Beta Sigma and all my amazing sisters of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And I gotta do it. I say my soror, you looking good today.
Zayta
Yes,
looks
ma'am.
good every day.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am. Zeta look good every day for y'all don't know.
Mhm.
Right? So I gotta get into the intro. Let me give you your flowers while credit is due, just like I also told you outside of the studio. I've been a fan of yours for a while. I really love the way you're able to curate events, to curate content. And we're gonna dive deeper into what you're doing now and where you're at in Portugal. But I really just truly enjoy your content and everything that you stand for and everything that you promote. So I just wanted to give you your flowers now before I even get into your
Yeah.
intro. Yeah.
Thank you.
So just a little bit about Cam. So Cam she's a travel influencer. She's a business owner that inspires millennials to travel the world and immerse themselves in cultures around the world. In 2021, we all can know that time. We're gonna talk about those COVID days. So in 2021, she received her residency in Portugal, which is a D7 visa, right? D7 visa. We're
Yeah.
gonna get into that and see how that transpired. So since moving to Portugal, she's co-founded Black in Portugal, a community-based organization that brings locals, it brings expats, and it brings travelers and wanderers from all over the world. So I just want to give you the intro that you deserve. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you so much. Like I said, I'm really excited to be here. It is an honor. I really appreciate what you're doing and giving people a platform to talk about what they're doing globally, especially in the diaspora.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. So let's put on for the culture. First question.
Yes.
Let's dive into the mentality. Like
Mhm.
growing up, obviously we're gonna talk about where you're from, but growing up in the US, like what made you start to like travel started to intrigue you outside of the US to say, you know what, like I want to start going to these countries. I'm tired of seeing these countries in books, in history books. Like what gave you that mentality? Like let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think I've just always had a desire to travel. I grew up traveling a lot, but within the US. So me and my family would go on road trips up and down the East Coast, down south. And I remember being in high school and being on Twitter and just looking at destinations abroad and saving destinations. I created a Google Doc with different places I wanted to go to. So I always just had that urge to explore and to travel. And then I wanted to do study abroad. I never got the chance to do it. Um, and I remember I quit my job at Amazon. I was like, I'm tired of working. I want to travel. So I started freelancing and I booked actually, my sister surprised me with a trip to Greece. And that is what started my travels. And then I started freelancing so I could afford that lifestyle. Cause I'm like, this is so great. Just experiencing different cultures, connecting with people you wouldn't ordinarily connect with, and then I'm a foodie, so I like trying different foods. But that's ultimately what inspired me to start traveling. The trip my sister booked, being on Twitter, seeing images of places abroad, and just wanting to experience it myself.
Yeah, I'm a foodie too, man. You already know I'm from Louisiana, so my
Mhm.
palate is definitely different than everybody else in the US. I love good food. I love
Y'all
good
know how to
food.
throw down.
Yeah, I love good food. So man, let's talk about the big scare in the US. And unfortunately
Mhm.
I did have some family members that passed from COVID,
Really sorry.
unfortunately, but that, I feel like that was a shift in the mindset for so many people in the country. So
Yeah.
many people. So let's dive into those COVID days and what made you decide to, like you say, you know what, like if now is not the time,
Hmm.
then it's never going to be a time for me to leave. Like
Yeah.
let's take us through that time frame and those moments.
Yeah. So actually, I had lived abroad previously for a short period of time. I lived in Thailand for a year and a half. This was before the pandemic. But as I was leaving Thailand, that's when COVID started. So I left Thailand in March 2020. I thought I wanted to move back to the US to settle down and be more serious and work on my career. And then I quickly realized this ain't it. It's not safe. People don't care about other people's health. It's expensive. It's very isolating. The weather sucks. And yeah, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So I was like, where can I go to get residency? Because in Thailand, I couldn't get residency. I could only get a work permit. And then I started looking into Portugal because my sister had mentioned it. And then I overheard a couple talking about it. So I was just like, I think this is a sign that I need to move to Portugal. And then when you spend the pandemic in the US, people weren't masking up and people weren't taking it seriously. I was like, this is not the place for me. I need a place where they actually care about people's health and they're prioritizing the safety. And the US was not that place at all. So I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we can talk brief. Like, what I'm very interested. Like, what made you choose? And I know it's very popular now, right? It's a
Mhm.
popular destination. I do plan to go there sometime next year. But what made you choose Thailand to be like the first country that you wanted to like kind of reside in for a little while? Like, what drawed you to Thailand?
I feel like it was a spiritual experience for me. I went to Thailand. Well, one, I was always fascinated in Buddhism. So I was like, I'm going to go to Thailand. I told my sister, you can join me if you want, but I'm going to go. And she came with me. And it felt right in my body. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but I was there and I was just having the time of my life, eating fresh fruit, meeting new people, getting massages, being in greenery. And people were like, "Oh, you can move here super easy." I was like, "Nah, it can't be easy to move to Thailand. Like, no, y'all lying." They're like, "You can come here and find a job easily." And so when I left Chiang Mai, I was sad. I was so sad. I started crying. I was like, I don't want to leave. Like, this is so amazing. And then I decided that I was going to move there because I always wanted to live abroad. I was thinking more Peace Corps, but I liked the flexibility that teaching in a school would give me because I could travel around. I didn't have to be in the middle of nowhere and I could connect with locals and expats. And so that's what made me decide Thailand. It's a beautiful country. It's very peaceful. It's very safe. And safety is a non negotiable for me when I'm abroad.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I they talk about, I think it's bot. That's the currency, bot.
Yes, Thai
Bot,
baht.
something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, they say, man, that dollar can stretch. And I talk about it
Mhm.
all the time on the show. Like people don't understand. Like even though the U.S. is like is not the most powerful passport in the world, but that blue book
Mhm.
can take you places to where you have never even imagined. And you know, 9 times out of 10, our dollar is the U.S. dollar is 9 times out of 10 stronger than that particular currency, and you can do a lot with it. You
Yeah.
can do a lot with it. You know, so I gotta tell you, divulge into the question that everybody wants to know. For those history junkies out there, for those Afrocentric people, Portugal. Portugal is the first country in the European, like in Europe,
Mhm.
to start the transatlantic slave trade. How is the culture in Portugal? How is
Yeah.
it? With that historical fact. How is Portugal? Like really?
Okay, so there's a few things. One, they don't really like to acknowledge their part in the
Mm,
transatlantic slave trade, which is why I really respect the work Naki's doing. He does the African Lisbon tour, and it's to talk about the history of the transatlantic slave trade. That's where I actually first learned about it. because you learn about the Brits and the French, but they don't really talk about the Portuguese. And so there was nothing created. I think there's one museum in the south of Portugal, but they don't have this information in their history books. So they kind of just ignore that
Mhm.
or just sweep it under the rug. But there are a lot of Black people in Portugal, not even just immigrants or expats or digital nomads, whatever you want to call or classify people as. There are a lot of former Portuguese colonies that are in Africa and Brazil. And so Brazil is the blackest country, Salvador specifically, outside of Africa. So you have people that are migrating here from Brazil, Angola, Sao Tome, Cape Verde, Mozambique. So you have that population. Then you have people that are immigrating from the US, Nigeria, maybe the UK. And then you have people that are Afro Portuguese that have been here generationally. So there is a large population, which I love because I blend in. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I never would have thought that. I'm gonna be honest with you. And see, this is why this platform is needed, because it gives accurate information to people that's actually either lived there or have went there X amount of times and can give you that really local insight.
Mhm.
And I never would have thought. I never would have thought that the percentage there was high. I
Yeah.
never would have thought that. Wow.
I would say outside of maybe the UK and France, Portugal has one of the highest Black populations in Europe.
Wow.
Um,
Let's not. We gonna switch it up, because I kind of went hard with that question. Let's
So,
soften it up a little bit. Then we're gonna come back to that. We're gonna table that
yeah,
and come back. You're a foodie.
yeah.
How is the food in Portugal? We're gonna dive into that, and then what kind of recommendations can you give? Because I know I'm leading into this question because we gonna promote the hell out of your business on this show.
Thank you. I
Let's get
appreciate
it. Let's get
it.
it. Let's get it. So let's
I
dive
love
into the food of
international
Portugal.
food.
Oh
I must
yeah,
say I
yeah.
love international food. So typically European food is not my favorite. There are some good Portuguese restaurants, I would say outside of Lisbon. In Lisbon, the Portuguese food is mid to me. But people
Hmm.
like it because it's fresh. It's fresh fish. They don't season it though. Um so I love the
You had to throw.
international food. Yes, I love the
They don't have
international
that
food.
tone. They don't have no tone and no garlic
They
powder, no
don't.
cayenne
My
peppers, no
friend from
nothing.
Louisiana brought some for me because she knew that I needed it. But yeah, I'll eat a lot of like Asian food and then African food. So I did start a tour called Afro Flavors. It is a tour to highlight Black owned businesses in Lisbon. And so most of the cuisine is either African or African influenced. And we tried different cuisine from Mozambican to Cape Verdean to Brazilian. And so we go to different places in Lisbon. You get to discover new areas. And you also get to support Black businesses and have good food because they got spicy food and it's seasoned well. So I knew that there was a need for people to have good food when they came to Portugal, Lisbon specifically. And that's why I created Afro Flavors. And I also am about supporting Black owned businesses. So I was like, why not? There's nothing like this that exists here.
Yeah, and that's amazing. That's amazing that you can, and that's just the heart of a hustler. That's the heart of an entrepreneur that can find like what type of problems does this particular area have, and like, hey, I can provide this solution. I think this question is kind of two parts. The first part of this question is like, you have the tours, and the Afro Flavors tour. Where can people find the tours? Because we know that like Airbnb has experiences now. They
Mhm.
have Get Your Guide. They have all these different things. But how can if people wanted to try to find your tour specifically when they're
Mhm.
traveling to Portugal, especially Lisbon, how can they find you?
Yeah, so working on the Airbnb part, but
Gotcha.
you can book directly on my site. So afroflavorslisbon.com. You can book on Get Your Guide as well or Eventbrite. So those are the platforms where you can find the tour. Obviously, you're going to get the best price if you book directly on my site. So I recommend going to my site. But yeah, that's how you can find it. And then we're also going to be expanding with some new interesting projects in 2025, just as a way to support more Black owned businesses in the culinary field as well.
Got you, got you. Not to give out all your secret sauce, but just bless us with just a few places, just a few, because I want people to go to the tour. Period.
So you want
But
to know a restaurant that's on the
yeah,
tour?
what are some like just some minor, recommendations, people,
Mhm.
even if it's outside of your current like tour path, like where are some like
Yeah, I can
I guess you
definitely
could
give
say like
recommendations.
touristic places and then some like hidden gem places that people can go.
I always recommend Mumbo. And so the end of my tour, we end in Green Street. And Green Street has a strip of Black owned businesses. And Mumbo is one of the businesses. They do West African food. So Angolan, Cape Verdean, and Senegalese food. They have that there. I also recommend Sophia's place, and she has upscale African food. And she changes out the menu frequently, but it's really good. If you're looking for more like upscale African food, recommend Sophia's Place. There is a restaurant called Mankuchi. It is Angolan Lebanese food, which is great as well. And then there's a business called Quest, South African owned, but great for brunch. So I be knowing the little spots that people can go to.
Perfect, perfect. And this is a random question I just thought of, but it's like Portugal known for coffee as well. I'm a coffee drinker.
Yes,
Okay,
espresso
okay.
for
Like
sure.
what's some yeah, I love coffee, man. I
Yeah, you
love
just go
coffee.
get your espresso. And what I love is some of the simple things. Like I said, I don't traditionally eat a lot of Portuguese food, but they have like pastelerias or padarias, which are little local coffee shops. And so you can go get a coffee and a croissant with cheese and ham for $2.99. And it's the simple pleasures that like bring me joy. So they have good coffee for sure. And you just get an espresso for like €1 and some change. And yeah.
Got you, got you. You know what's interesting. You've been to 30 plus countries, right? You did 30 countries before,
30,
correct?
y'all.
Yeah.
I'm about to add 3 more soon.
Damn. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Like what's some of the ways that you travel hack? Like how have you been, how do you go but like navigating through these countries and, you know, either finding deals or maybe turn it into a multi-country trip. Like how
Yeah.
like what's your way to process some of those things?
I think it's definitely shifted as the years have gone on. When I was starting out traveling, I was freelancing. So I was driving Lyft and I was hustling. I was living at home with my parents too. So I was driving Lyft, I was a virtual assistant, and then I was teaching online. So I was just finding multiple streams of income. When I was living abroad in Thailand, it was easy to travel because flights would be like $30 to another country. And so I was teaching English in a school and then I was teaching English online. So I always find an extra way to make money and then I country hop. Because if you're in Asia, Southeast Asia, it's easy and it's inexpensive. Europe, the same type of concept, although it is a bit more challenging to hustle here. So what I've been doing as of lately is connecting with people, and I go to countries where I have friends or I know someone. So I get free housing sometimes. I went to Peru and I'm in this nomadness group. This guy said, yeah. So this guy let me stay at his family's apartment. He wasn't there. In Colombia, I have a friend that lives there. I stayed with her. Um, I'm going to Saudi Arabia in a month and some change. I'm going to stay with a friend there. So it helps to build connections with people so that you have a place to stay and then you can go to the local spots. And yeah, I don't think there's any other hacks when it comes to flights. I try to utilize my points. I'm not all the way there yet with the hacks, but that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah, no, you brought up a key point, and I think a lot of people that's another hack as well. Because debit cards serve no purpose at all. It doesn't give you any rewards. I've always recommended to people that they utilize their credit cards to pay their bills and also to just, live life. And
Mhm.
that's how another way to accumulate points to travel. I know that's
Yeah.
one of the ways that I do it. I
Mm.
love to use Google Flights. It used to be Scott's Chiefs flights, but now
Yes,
it's
I
called
used to use
Going.
that.
Yeah,
I don't
I
use it
still use
anymore
Going.
though,
Yep,
because I live abroad and it's mostly from US cities
yep,
going
yep,
abroad. Yeah.
yep. I use that and a little bit of Skyscanner, not too much. A
Yeah.
little bit of
Those are the good
Skyscanner.
ones. Secret
Wow.
flying is good too. Have you heard of secret flying?
No, no, never heard of.
It's a website and then they post different deals. But you can also search from the region that you're leaving from. And so if there's any flight errors, they'll post about it and you can just book it. So they got good deals for sure.
Wow. Okay. No, that's dope. That's dope. So, let's get back to Portugal. Why Portugal? What made you decide to, want to move abroad to Portugal? Like what drew you to the country?
Yeah, so I actually got asked this question earlier today, and I was like, I'm about to start handing out little flyers or cards that says my reason why. But I was leaving Thailand and I was looking for my next place. And I overheard a couple talking about Portugal because in 5 years you can get citizenship here. And so that's what initially piqued my interest. And then my sister was talking about me moving here. She had visited before and she was like, you would love it. There's melanated people here and it's not that far from the US. Because I was considering Colombia. And so I started looking into it and I was like, how am I going to move here with a remote job? And I didn't have any savings at this point. Like I just got back from Thailand, literally zero. And you needed to have 10,000 in savings and there were just so many hurdles. But basically I wanted to move here so I could be closer to the US and I can get citizenship and be a resident because I didn't want to have to keep doing border runs. Like somebody could kick me out the country if they wanted to. Like I wanted that second passport and I wanted to be around Black people and I wanted to be closer to the US.
Okay. Okay. I have noticed that and I'm when I say this, I already know the answer, but online they make it so easy to say
Mhm.
that it's so easy to get a visa, to get residency in Portugal. Let's break that myth right now. So how was your process? Let's talk about that. The good, the bad, the ugly. How was your process to get residency in Portugal?
I feel like my process was definitely not the normal experience. But to be fair, I can admit where I went wrong. So I thought all you needed was the savings, but you have to show how you're going to sustain yourself in Portugal. And I failed to do that. So I applied for the D7. Now, if you're a remote worker, you need to apply for the D8 because that's the digital nomad visa. But at the time, all you needed to show was that you make 700 euro a month and you had 10,000 in savings and you had an apartment and you had a bank account and all these things.
Hmm.
I got denied the first time. I had the savings and I had the apartment and I had, the bank account, but I didn't show how I was going to be able to sustain myself. And I shot myself in the foot because in my personal statement, I was just talking about things that weren't necessarily tangible, right? So you want to make it fact based. So I got denied and then I reapplied in February 2021. This time I had a bank account. Well, I got a different bank account. I got my NIF, which is a tax ID number. I got another lease. I included my resume because I was like, I'm gonna show them that I got a strong work history in case I did a job contract. Um, and I had someone write me a letter of reference, my accountant. So I did more for my second app to make it stronger, but it took me 5 months to get approved for sure.
Wow. Wow. Walk, how was the mental during that process? Like,
I had to
especially a
detach.
person that wants to just, uproot themselves from the US and it's just so much, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The US is, has its perks, but when it comes to news, I don't really watch it. If you're
Mhm.
more this left brain that you watch this, you watch that. They try to paint the picture of fear on these countries and things like that. So like, let's take us through. And this COVID time too. You
It
know.
was. I was going insane. Like, y'all, I was going insane. I love my sister and my family, but I was living with my family, and it was just wild going from living by myself to living with my family, having to like be more isolated and not hang out with friends because I was trying to protect my family from COVID. And that drove me crazy. I need to socialize. I need to be around people. Um, I at some point I had to detach. I was like, I'm gonna go to Thailand for 2 months, and that's what I did. And I had to quarantine for 2 weeks before I could actually be out and about in Thailand. And I was like, it's worth it because I'm already quarantined basically. So that helped me a lot. And then they had opened the borders. So I actually moved here before getting approved. I got here like on a Saturday or something, and 2 days later I got the email saying my visa was approved. So it just kind of
Wow.
worked out in that
Wow.
way.
Wow. Yeah, you just took a chance on yourself. Let's shift gears into um because the term nomad or nomadic is
Hmm.
starting to become common now. It's
Yeah.
starting to become a common word. Actually, most people use that more than entrepreneur now.
Hmm.
What are some like unconventional ways that people can, that you've seen, or that maybe your colleagues that maybe be, in Portugal or elsewhere in the world? What's some unconventional ways people can, you know, make it, if they decided
Hmm.
to jump ship from the good old Uncle Sam?
Yeah, I definitely think you have to have multiple streams of income. You obviously don't want to burn yourself out, so you have to figure out what's sustainable for you. When I was living in Thailand, teaching English online was sustainable because I was in the same time zone or similar time zone as China. And at the
Mm.
time, I was making like 20 an hour teaching online. And that's a lot for Thailand. Like 20 an hour is a lot. And so that helped me, you know. In Portugal, I realized tourism is where it's at, and people are coming here and people will pay for an experience. So I was like, I saw this opportunity. It aligned with my passions, but it also is a way for me to make money. So you kind of have to be a bit innovative and think about where you're going and how you can enter the market. If you're moving in the Middle East, you might be able to teach English there and have your housing paid for. If you're moving to South Korea, the same thing. But if you're moving to Portugal, you need to have a business online or do something in tourism. So I think you have to just assess what the market is like and what you can do,
Gotcha.
basically. Yeah.
Got you. No, and I'm glad that you brought that up, and I'll talk about this briefly. Shout out to Fly Girl. I interviewed her a few episodes ago, and she actually lives in Mexico, and she pretty much became, taught herself Spanish and started rubbing shoulders with people that own yachts, and now she does yacht parties every weekend in Mexico and Cancun.
Oh,
So
that's
like
what's
that's our way, like so you just gotta like dive into it. Matter of fact, how is your Spanish? How is it? How's
I
your
don't,
Spanish?
my Spanish. So I learned Spanish in college and in high school. And Portuguese is similar to Spanish, but it's different. Like, for example, they do say obrigada instead of gracias. But they say de nada, which they do in Spanish. They say hola, which is the same. So there are similarities. My Spanish knowledge helps me get by, but the pronunciation is different and there are some differences in words as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Man, shout out to Duolingo, man. People be sleeping on Duolingo. I mean, Duolingo has been a lifesaver for me. I
Mhm.
have friends that, I'm learning Spanish right now. So obviously I have friends that, all over the world that help me as well, to dive into it, and it's been a journey. I'll say that.
I think the best way though is to go to a country and just immerse yourself. In Lisbon, it's very international, so it's harder to immerse here. But if I went outside of Lisbon in a village somewhere, I think that would be helpful. But yeah, you going to Colombia, that's gonna make you speak Spanish if you go to certain parts.
Hmm. Definitely. Well, actually, my girlfriend's Cuban, so
Okay.
it's a different. Yeah, it's
It's a
different.
different dialect, but yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, "That's Paseo, por favor, slow down, slow down." I don't understand.
Yes, I love the
You
I
know?
love the island Spanish, I would say, like the Puerto Rican and Cuban and Dominican Spanish. I don't understand it, but it's how we add our own soul to,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah. Just think about like New York, like they strong, tough, like concrete jungle, and then New Orleans, we got a little bit more longer Caribbean, type accents. But man, that's absolutely amazing, man. I mean, wow. So you got me want to go to Portugal right now. That's great.
You
And
guys
honestly, I never would have
go.
thought about going to Portugal. I'm serious. Like,
I think a lot of people felt the same way. And I've seen the shift over the years because I started my process in 2020. I didn't move here until 2021. But before, it wasn't that popular of a destination for Americans. It was
mhm.
for other Europeans, but not Americans. And now Americans are like coming through.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Wow, that's crazy. You know, what are some like landmarks, some other attractions like in Portugal that people should look out for whenever they, touch down?
yeah, so I think what makes Portugal unique is there are monuments, but obviously people go to Paris for the Eiffel Tower or they go to Egypt for the pyramids. There's not the same level of monuments here. There are monuments, but it's not like that. I would say people come here to go to Douro Valley, which is up north near Porto, and that's where port wine is made. I definitely recommend Porto. You have the central of Portugal, where Nazaré, where you can see these really high waves. You can go surfing. So people come here for surfing. They come here to go to Sintra, which is a magical, majestic town. There's castles. So people mostly are coming here for the wine, the beaches, the fresh seafood, and I think also because it's relatively affordable.
Gotcha, gotcha. What what advice what advice could you give somebody that's like on the fence right now, like and like afraid to take that leap? Like what advice would you give them right now to say, you know what, like the time is now?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think you have to do it afraid. I always say do it afraid because otherwise you're going to wake up and have regret and always wonder what if. Especially if you're moving from the US, you can always return. I always tell people you can always return. If it don't work out, you can go back because you're from there and you have citizenship there, right? You are privileged enough to be able to go back home. So take that leap. Try it. And
Yeah.
if it doesn't work out, go back home. I know it sounds simple, but you owe it to yourself to lean into that curiosity of moving abroad and taking that leap.
We definitely gonna collab later in the future. I see like a digital nomad seminar or something like that. But what are some other ways? I know teaching, a lot of people teach English, but just like briefly, what are some other ways are you seeing other people doing it now in Portugal to live
Yeah.
there?
I think depending on your skill set, there are people that are mental health professionals, so they're doing virtual therapy. I would say some people are on student visas, so that helps them to get abroad. I would say that people are freelancers or contractors. So if you can convince your employer to turn you into a 1099, then you can work abroad. Being a consultant too. So there are different ways, but like you said, the reference you had earlier where the lady that you interviewed made connections with locals and she's having yacht parties. You also can connect with the locals and when you do, they're willing to help you out because it's a win-win. They see the benefit.
We gonna talk offline. I'm not ready to let the melanated traveler community know about this yet. I'm working on something in Peru right now. You see me wearing this hat. I
Oh,
gotta
I
play. I
love
gotta play in Peru.
Peru.
Yeah, I gotta play in Peru. I'm working on. Peru is absolutely amazing. By the way,
It
it's like
is
top. Lima is like top
fine.
five biggest cities in the world, and a lot of people don't even know it.
It makes sense though, because the traffic is awful. I'm
Yeah.
surprised I made my flight on time because I was really like pushing it. But I love Lima. The culinary scene there is so good. The
Oh
food,
yeah.
so good.
Top notch, best in the
Oh,
world. Them in Vietnam and also other Asian countries, but they like top two, top three.
I would say Peru, Thailand, India. Like for me, they're the top. I really like Greek food too. I would say that. I do.
We got to talk briefly about Peru. I seen you in parasailing. You had a chance to see Machu Picchu. I went there last year. It was absolutely amazing. Like that process. How like overall like if you had to rank it, like for me, Peru is up there. Like some
It's
one
up
of my
there. It's
top
in my
countries.
top five for
Yeah.
sure. It's my like so. Thailand is number one. My top five for food and my top five for experiences aren't the same, but I would say Thailand, Greece, Peru, South Africa. Ooh, I just had to tell somebody this too. I really like Sri Lanka as well. Like I had a good time in Sri Lanka.
Wow. Okay. All right. We might have to go live for that. That's
Yeah,
interesting. That's interesting. That's one that nobody never would have thought about. But
I
yeah,
know.
Peru.
I hope a lot of people don't find out about it so that it can keep its, you know,
Yeah. Oh,
beauty.
trust me, I already know. Which dives into my next point is that sometimes, like for me, I feel like I don't like going to, and that's another reason why I never thought about Portugal because it's starting to become popular. I don't really
Mhm.
like going to where they have a lot of Americans. I really
Mhm.
don't like going to those places. But it seems like from your experience, Portugal still has its own authenticity and originality when it comes
Yeah.
to a country, and you can still get that local vibe if you wanted to go. If you
Yeah.
want the American vibe, is this section.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's just about knowing what communities are offering that. So right now, I have a group specifically for millennials and Gen Zers called Zillennials. And I work a lot with this group called Intracambio Diaspora. And it's a language exchange for people that are in the diaspora, whether you're wanting to learn English or Portuguese. And so we're doing things for locals. We're doing things whether you're an American, but you're an immigrant because you're working on citizenship, or you're Angolan, or you're Cape Verdean, or you're Nigerian. Like we're bringing people together, and it is more of a local vibe. So you just got to know, you know.
got you, got you, got you. And before we wrap things up, like first of all, I really appreciate you for coming on. Like I said, it's just absolutely amazing to connect not only with like-minded individual, but also a soror. So this
Yeah,
episode is special for me. But
it is.
also, I want to give you this time to let everybody know how can they follow you, how can they support your tours, your businesses. I want to take this time out for you to pour out everything so we can go ahead on and support you in any way possible.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So if you want to follow me on my personal page, Cultured Cam, Cultured with the C, Cam with a K. And if you want to support my business, it's Afro Flavors Lisbon on Instagram. And then I just started a Facebook page too. So go ahead and like the Facebook page or go to my website to book a tour. If you are considering moving to Portugal or you live in Portugal and you're looking for community, there's a group called Zillennials in Portugal, and it is for Black people that are based in Lisbon looking to connect. So it is more so for locals and those who are looking for community.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, again, Sorod, you know, I appreciate you for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And for those that were on the fence about going to Portugal, you have no reason not to go. You can find Cam soon as the plane land in Portugal. You can go find her, and she
I
can show you
know.
some amazing places in Portugal. Okay, point blank. Period.
I got y'all.
Yes, ma'am. Well, look, I appreciate it. Y'all know my motto. I'll see you at the top because the bottom is just too crowded. Peace and blessings to y'all.